Podcast, Third Space Podcast, Third Space Podcast, Third Space Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Third Space Podcast, episode number 56, Tears of the Scientists, which is kind of a combination of the two things we talked about this time. The first being The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, the new game that just came out last week that I was very excited to play. And so Daniel gets my initial thoughts on the game, but we don't spend too long on that. I figure I'll probably talk about it in future podcasts as well, so no need to belabor the point and have a huge episode on the game. No spoilers. We talk about that for a little bit, and then we bring back Daniel Does Science. Daniel hates this segment, and I think he hated this one too. But this time I asked Daniel, is it alive? And then I asked a number of different things to see whether they were alive. Daniel actually did a pretty good job. Maybe it's not as hard to assess whether things are alive as I thought they might be for him. But he does a decent job at that. It's fairly entertaining. And the segment naturally leads into a discussion about education, how we learn these things, whether or not they're interesting, and so on. So we rant about that for the last 10 or 15 minutes of the conversation. It was pretty fun, and we have a terrible intro and outro, so steel yourself. Enjoy the jingle, because that's your only hope. But I hope you enjoy the episode. Kick it off. Third Space Podcast, Third Space Podcast, Third Space Podcast, Third Space Podcast.
It's the Legend of Bennett.
That's me. Let's go.
Yeah. The legend.
Terrible opening. Among the worst.
Leave it in.
Ship it.
The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom came out last Friday.
It's a video game.
It took 6 years from Breath of the Wild, which is largely regarded among critics as one of the best and most influential games ever. I saw something among 200 critics, the consensus was that was number one.
Yeah. Critics kind of suck, though.
Yeah, sure, but you are admittedly like Zelda is it safe to say that's your favorite franchise overall? Yeah. So there's not really even you respect a lot of games and love a lot of games, but like that is your baby if you had one. So this came out, and I just want your first impressions. I'm sure it's this giant game, but I just wanted a quick where are you at?
Pretty good.
Nice, descriptive. Totally, that's what I anticipated.
So let me give you a very quick summation of my opinion. Breath of the Wild, when it came out, I enjoyed the game greatly. I can't remember if we talked about it on the podcast before. However, it's a fundamental shift in the game design from previous Zelda games. Previous Zelda games are more or less linear, not totally, but more or less. And they kind of have a structure whereby you go into these dungeons that are large and themed, and they have a themed boss, and you get a special item, and you do a progression of these until the end of the game. Breath of the Wild.
Is that what you love about them? Is that
yes.
That's where your love started? Is these amazing dungeons?
Yeah, the dungeons are my favorite. Okay. The dungeons are my favorite because they're full of puzzles, but they're themed, and it's a crafted experience for the player. In Breath of the Wild, they changed that philosophy, and it was open world, and you could kind of go anywhere. And there weren't any traditional dungeons in the same sense. They had some kind of crafted dungeon-like experiences, but they felt different in kind. And I was sad that my favorite part of Zelda games kind of took a back seat. And Breath of the Wild brought a lot of new things to the table that I enjoyed, but it was just a very different kind of Zelda game. Still a wonderful game, but something fundamental about what I appreciated about Zelda had gone away. Tears of the Kingdom now comes out. It's basically the Breath of the Wild style. Uses the same map on the ground with changes, and then adds in some new things as well. And so,
is it graphically more impressive, or is it exactly the same?
Okay. Yeah, I don't care about graphics that much. So it probably is a little better since it was made only for the Switch, whereas Breath of the Wild was made for the Wii U and the Switch, but yeah, it's negligible difference graphically. So the art style is the same. A lot of the characters return as well. But anyway,
So have they
just
maintained that philosophy? Have they gotten you some dungeons? What is,
I
I know that was a lot of feedback people gave. It's like, we want dungeons. So
I'm not far enough to give a definitive answer. I've made it through one of the kind of areas, and so one of the what I guess we'll call, I'm not going to call it a dungeon, but that's the purpose it serves. And the boss fight at the end was a new boss, and so it was like in Breath of the Wild, all the bosses were kind of the same. I mean, they had different attack patterns, but they all looked the same. They were a pinkish blob of stuff. And in this one, this was a new boss. It looked and played like a classic Zelda boss. So I really appreciated that part of it. The lead up to the boss was it was crafted somewhat and linear and somewhat themed. It was aesthetically cool. So like it's getting there. I want to see the rest of the quote unquote dungeons, whatever I'll end up calling these things, and they could. It seems like a step forward, is what I'm saying. It seems like a step forward, but this one that I played didn't live up to the best of the old dungeons. That may be asking too much. But so far, like ultimately, I'm pleased. I'm having a good time. There are a lot of really cool things that I like, and some pleasant surprises that I've found. The mechanics have changed in a positive way, and I'm enjoying exploring again. And the game is really hard in some places. Like at the beginning of the game, when you only have a few hearts and everything kills you in one hit, and you find these amazing enemies or bosses, and they kill you in one hit, and so you have to, if you want to beat them, you have to try over and over. And like I fought one just the other night. It's a new big boss enemy in this game, and it took me, I don't know, dozens of tries, and I just get killed in one hit. If he hits you, you die. And so like you have to learn how to beat it appropriately.
Isn't it the game telling you shouldn't be playing?
Probably,
this
yeah,
guy?
probably so, but I don't know. I just wanted to beat it, and
it's part of the thrill too. If you're not supposed to, but you can technically, then
that's one of the great
additional.
That's one of the great things about the game is that you have so many tools at your disposal to take on enemies. Like especially with one of the new mechanics where you can fuse stuff to your weapons. You have so many tools at your disposal, and so I was trying lots of different combinations of things until I found something that more or less worked, and it allowed me to stay alive long enough to win. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it so far, and I'll keep you posted on my enjoyment as I progress through the game, which will probably take me a few more podcasts before I finish.
Yeah, I'll be interested for quick updates and kind of a sober, like once you're done with the game and you've gotten away from it, because I think it's hard to judge while you're excited playing a quality game, but you can already say definitively it's obviously a quality game.
It's there's no question it's a quality game.
Very
fun.
The best, even.
Sure, top tier video game.
Right.
But is it a top tier Zelda game? It's going to be hard to get back to what I loved about the old Zelda games, and I think it's increasingly less likely that they make a Zelda game like the ones before. I think we might be stuck with this.
I think you're
formula.
right. People might even be frustrated if they released a dungeon-based linear game and be like, "Oh, I missed this." Like, you're spoiled with the sandbox in some ways. I don't mean that's a whole nother discussion, but it's so impressive for so many reasons that it might even be detrimental to gaming in some ways, like unexpected ways.
Yeah, maybe.
So.
I think it's been a while, and you've gotten a little too cocky, just in general.
Yeah.
And so I want to take you down a peg with Daniel Does Science.
Oh man, I wish I'd been studying. I wish you'd give me a heads up so I could do a little like H2O's for hydrogen and oxygen, right? Okay, good. Nailed it.
No.
Moving on.
No studying.
Next
segment. this time, I think, listen, the last few times we've done this, you've actually done pretty well, if I remember correctly. And this is one I think you might be able to manage. So
the problem is I don't remember. You could ask me the same questions. I might answer very differently, and that's kind of funny.
That is kind of funny. I might do that one time. But the theme for this Daniel Does Science is it alive? So that should be easy,
Man.
right? Just
Okay.
just I'll give you a thing and you tell me whether it's alive or not.
I okay. Yeah.
So before, let me just pose this question to you before we begin. Do you want to try to present a definition of what it means to be alive, or do you just want to go through all these things and go with your gut and see whether or not you think they're alive?
I I'm trying to think if I have an interesting definition of what it means to be alive, and I'm that might not be funny. So I need to go ahead and try. To be alive, I would think. Oh God, it needs to consume in order to stay in this animated state. It has an animated state,
So
perhaps.
it can move.
I mean, obviously, like plants aren't mobile and things like that, and they can blow in the wind. But I don't even mean, they have like photosynthesis there's some sort of consumption and there's growth. It tends to be they need to consume to do that growing,
Yeah.
or create.
Are you Googling?
What does it mean
You're
to be alive?
furiously Googling right now.
I'm not. It wouldn't be fun. I'm really not.
Okay.
I don't know, man. I
All
don't
right,
know.
okay.
I don't really. I'm already slightly embarrassed because
No,
it's
no,
such
that's
a dumb definition of being
fair
alive.
enough.
Because I'm thinking of things like, oh, I don't know if you say like, well, I don't want to guess what you're gonna say, so let's go.
All right. Well, we'll run through them, and by the examples that I posed to you, I'm sure you'll be able to kind of by the end construct a definition. All right. Well, let's just start off. Feathers. Are feathers alive?
No, they're not alive.
What if they're on the bird?
I mean, that's like fingernails are on a human, but fingernails are not alive. Hair is not alive, so feathers are not alive.
Okay. Yep, that's correct. By the broadly accepted definition of alive. What about mildew?
Mildew does grow. It does smell.
Building out that definition.
Man. I don't know if you're giving me the softball as a number 2 that I don't know. I'm not 100% sure on because I'm not even like I want to say yeah, it's alive. It's this mildewy, moldy. Mold is alive. I want to say yes, but the reason I'm hesitating is I'm just gonna say yeah. I think it's alive.
Yeah, it's alive. Mildew's alive.
Okay.
What about viruses?
That was actually one of the ones I was gonna guess, and I'm pulling from I don't know what, but I want to say it's not alive because I remember going, but it's invasive and it has what's the word I'm looking for? It invades and a virus is like a
parasite.
Parasite. That is the word. Thank you.
Viruses aren't a parasite, but
that's the word I was looking for,
yes.
And it's not a parrot, but it's not one. No. Funny that you knew exactly how wrong I was.
Well, because viruses invade your cells and make use of your cells in order to replicate, and
because parasites are living, and you're trying to avoid saying that. And
yeah,
viruses are not. Boom, not living.
Yeah.
I was gonna say not living though, because they either need the living in order and they can't be on their own. So that might be that might help me with my definition. First of all, tell me if I'm right. And I was gonna say no, I promise, before you even tried to help me out.
You're right. It's been debated across time, but I think the general consensus is that viruses are not alive. They're complicated. They're kind of more like little chemical packages, but they're not necessarily alive.
They're animated, but is it because they're completely dependent on something else, or I'm kind of just thinking like, can something be alive? I mean,
they're kind of like little bundled up molecular machines, and so the little bits of themselves just carry out their function when they're put in a particular place, but they don't on their own have any ability to reproduce or grow or consume energy or all of what those sorts of things.
Okay.
So yeah, again, this one has been debated, and it's it's a tricky one. It's one of the trickier ones to assess.
I seem to just recall in science class going, I don't really understand, but I memorized the answers no.
Yes. Yeah, a lot of people like that.
Yeah.
All right. So what about bacteria then?
I want to say it is alive because I've heard the pairing live bacteria and like kombucha is live, like
Hippie
alive.
drink.
You're drinking something alive, and I've always thought, and mayonnaise is alive technically or
What?
something, or and then people going, no, it's not, and like there's this sort of.
Mayonnaise?
Have you never heard this sort of myth
No.
that it has live bacteria in mayonnaise, and that idea is really
You
disgusting to
mean
me, and
yogurt?
so. Maybe, but yeah, well, yogurt and mayonnaise. I
Mayonnaise?
really think I've heard
I thought
mayonnaise.
mayonnaise was just essentially egg
Egg,
whites.
it kind of is, but so I don't. Maybe someone telling me that during a fundamental like, as I was internalizing what mayonnaise was, they told me that, and they were misinformed, and they meant yogurt. But I know, like I've heard from.
I've never
someone.
heard that.
Okay,
Mayo is
maybe
alive.
I'm misremembering, but
Is it
yogurt makes
cruel?
more
Is it
sense
cruel to
anyway.
drink kombucha then?
Yeah, and I love it. I am cruel.
It
I was just
sounds
thinking
so
about how
gross.
it is an extreme taste that's really off-putting to some people. Like Danny B hates it, and I like it, but I will admit that it is harsh tasting, and it's not something you could ever, even if you were very thirsty, like chugging it. It's like there's a tang. I don't even know. Tang's one of those words I don't know what it means. By the way, so
What's
like
that
there's like a
orange flavored drink with the orangutan?
well, yeah, but it's got a bite to. Well, you can call barbecue sauce tangy, you know,
Sure.
and so I don't. But it's like there's something a little
Sour.
fierce, but not too sour, and also like wah, like, you know, it's got a little energy to it, almost like it's alive, and so. And even the Tang commercials you were talking about, like, it's a kick in the glass. You remember
Yeah,
those?
that's
They're
right. I
like
was
that.
trying to remember the motto. You got it.
And so it's also suggesting there's energy in that.
That's true.
But anyway, of course, it's not unethical, but it is alive. I will say that pretty confidently.
Yes. All right. You're right. It's one of the major.
Man, I'm good at this. I'm good at science.
You're a scientist. Yeah, it's one of the major categories of life. All right. What about fingernails?
Well, that's interesting that I said that earlier, and I said they're not alive. So I'm going to stick with. In fact, they grow. But no, they're not. They're not alive. They're just part of me. But like, if you were to ask if my hand is alive, I don't know what. I mean, yeah, I don't know what that question seems wrong. Is what I would say. It's like there's something off about the question. But fingernails, no, not alive.
So what about bones?
Oh, you asked it in a way like if a teacher asked it that way, they'd go, "No, I think bones are alive." That's what you've coached me to say in your tone. But let me think about it from my perspective and not picking up on your teacher tone. No, I don't think bones are alive. I don't know. They heal. They you can break them and they heal, and they're pretty cool that they. When you start thinking about growing and how it all happens in conjunction, that's amazing. That's neat.
Yeah.
That we're able to grow. Like if one of those systems were out of whack,
Your bone
weird
system?
things would happen. Your bones were a little, your bone system and your organ system, and like you have these big old organs outgrowing your bones, and your skin not like growing, being elastic quick enough. Like
You can imagine them, wheeling the guy into the emergency room. What's wrong? His organs are outgrowing his bone system.
yeah.
This guy's got his giant organs are out of control, man.
Or his brain is like seeping through his eye, like his skull. I don't know, just weird stuff. But it all pretty much happens together. Bones are not alive. I can't get there. You're gonna blow my mind if they are, but I'm gonna say they're not.
All right. So what about a bone that you dig up in a cemetery when you're looting the grave? What about that kind of bone? Is that bone alive?
That like if it's an animated dancing bone, it comes up through the.
No, I'm just
with a
saying,
hand.
like just a buried. I was trying to be funny, I failed, but like a
Sorry, I'm trying.
a long dead body. Sorry, this is a stupid
skeleton?
This is a stupid way to frame it. But I was trying to make the distinction between a bone that you would find from an obviously dead animal. Okay, now contrast that with the actual bone inside of your arm, your finger bones or your femur or something.
Yeah, that's where my mind went
Are
to.
those different?
I was looking at my arm and going, "It's a bone, right?" You know,
Yeah, there's a
but
bone
it's
in
not
there. We've been
well,
told,
I don't
anyway.
know where, like, so I am alive, and I wouldn't argue that, but my fingernails are not. I'm just saying my bone is not. But if you were to say, is my blood alive?
Yes, that's a good question.
Like, there's cells and blood. There's like something in there with lets in there, white blood cells, and they fight
Platelets.
platelets. That's it, platelets, and like, yeah. So there's things in there, but I don't know if they are alive. Like the parts of a cell, like the mitochondria. I'm just saying science now. It's
Powerhouse of the cell. All right, so bones
man.
are alive if they're in your
They are
body.
alive?
Yes, if bones are in your body, they're alive. They're cellular structures, and
I should have listened to Teacher Bennett. Like, that's what you were telling me, but
yeah, they're cells. Your
did you
cells
realize
reproduce.
you told me that?
Yes.
Did you like my analysis? Okay.
Yeah, I mean you're right. Like I'm not hiding the ball here with these. Sometimes I try to be tricky, but
I still don't understand because I'm really gonna ask some questions. Can I?
Sure, yeah.
I get that it grows, but like, and I get what. This is really tricky because I'm alive. Is my hand alive? I mean, I guess by these definitions, yes.
I agree with your question. Your observation that is your hand alive? That's just a bad question, because like what actually distinguishes your hand from your arm or your hand from the rest of you? It's arbitrary, right? Like,
well, at some point it's not. If my brain goes dead, but my body is living, that seems not arbitrary. But somehow there's a difference between like me losing an arm. You wouldn't be like, I can't be friends with you anymore. Yeah, consciousness and all of that. But
consciousness and life are different.
Yeah, yeah.
So like we're not talking about are your bones conscious? They're not unless your skeleton does come up out of the grave. But alive, yeah, they are alive. If it's in your body, if it's in a living creature, then yeah. But the bones that you find out, when you're hiking or something.
So why are my fingernails
buried in
not
your backyard?
like kind of like bone? Wait, they're like hair. I know they're made of.
Your fingernails aren't cellular. Like it's not cells that are reproducing for your fingernails growing. I mean, I guess they are technically cells, but they're dead cells.
So teeth are just like external bones, right?
Yes,
like
teeth are bones. So your teeth are alive.
That's why they can be sensitive to like ice cream.
Yeah.
If you to bite in.
Yeah, you have nerve endings inside your teeth.
So if you have nerve endings, you might. Well, do my internal bones have nerve endings? They don't.
Yeah, of course.
They do. I mean, I know all the like tissue around it does, but your actual bone. So like if
on
you were
the
to
inside, yeah.
if you were to torture me and you're cutting off my arm with like a saw, like obviously ripping through, obviously it hurts. But you're saying that it would hurt to my bones would hurt. That's a weird thought. I always thought it would just hurt because like getting a really deep cut and gash in the muscle, all of that. Yeah,
your bones aren't inanimate stuff inside you.
That adds a new level of horror for me. The idea of like, because I just figured the bone part. Well, particular part of the cutting wasn't additional pain. I don't know.
Right now, the reason why it's a little confusing is because, like your bones calcify, right, and that's what makes them hard. That's what makes them very tough and resistant.
Yeah.
And so it's a special cellular process that goes on inside your body. And I didn't I may be misspeaking on some of the terminology. I didn't go refresh myself on the cellular biology of bones before this, but yeah, they calcify, and so yeah, there are parts of your bone that if you really were gonna drill down to a microscopic level, you would not consider alive, but considered in whole, your bones are alive. And then of course when you die, the cellular parts, the living parts, die away, and the hard calcified ossified bone that remains is dead. So the skeleton that you find in your backyard when you're digging or something, that's dead. That's not alive anymore.
Man, I'm still just sort of unimpressed. I mean, bones are alive. Okay. What?
Just not
Why again?
not willing
Tell me
to believe
again.
it.
Say it again. I'm sorting through this. I'm sorting through this and going, wait.
I'm telling you, bones are alive, and when we get to the end of all these things, you can maybe you can put together the reasons why bones are alive.
Okay.
What about a jellyfish?
Ooh, I mean, they're very stupid, but they're almost no brain. Like,
more or less stupid than bones.
I had I feel like they're alive, but you might say that I could see this being debated because what don't they like? They don't have something. They're missing. I don't even know if they have a brain. But obviously bones don't have a brain, so they're alive. They're alive. They're just like the question about are they different than a plant, or are they just sort of a weird traveling plant? You know.
Yeah.
Like I know that's a very dumb way to put it, but like they are barely alive. But they're barely. I don't want to get into saying conscious because they're not even close to conscious. Like, but so I'm gonna say they're barely alive.
They are alive. I won't quantify how alive they are, but they are alive. Yeah. All right. What about if you're eating a hamburger, the sesame seeds that are on the bun of the burger?
At that point, no, they're dead. Seeds. Well, I don't know. Like it's kind of like if you take a tomato, and if you plant a slice of tomato, all the seed in there will actually grow. So I could see a sesame seed have potential to grow other, sesame, but which I don't know what it would look like, by the way, now that I'm thinking about it. All right. Are they alive?
A sesame it actually grows in this big thing about the size of a pineapple, and then the little seeds, they like kind of shred it. Kind of like all the little pieces, they shred it kind of like lemon zest,
Interesting.
No, I'm totally lying. that's not real.
I wouldn't know. I don't know what sesame. I just know sesame oil and sesame seeds and
yeah, they're little seeds. I don't know what a sesame plant looks like either.
I just pictured a boring green, like almost.
It probably is.
Thing.
Yeah, it probably is something like that. So sesame seeds alive or not alive?
Well, I'm even going, if you extend that to seeds in general, or maybe one that's like, it has potential. So I'm gonna. But is it like innate or inert, or is it? I'm going to say that it is. If I'm filling it out, I'm going to say it's not alive.
All right. Well, it was kind of a trick question anyway. So it depends. The answer is it depends. If it's been cooked and the reproductive mechanism has been killed, then yeah, it's not alive. It's just dead matter. But if it hasn't been cooked, then it's alive because it has even if it's dormant, then
dormant. That was the word I was looking for.
Yeah, those seeds can sprout. So then it would be
dormant
alive.
Seeds are alive.
Yes,
seeds are alive.
What about the burger that's on the bun?
Bacteria and stuff notwithstanding, I'd say no. The burger is dead.
Okay.
It was alive.
What about if it's rare, really rare?
Really rare, like if it's mooing, then it's alive.
Classic dad joke. All right, what about the burger on an Impossible Whopper?
Plant-based stuff. This is weird because what if it's alive? Some of it might be. I don't know what the heck is in Impossible meat. Or meat in quotes. I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's alive. Tell me it's alive, please.
No, it's not alive.
Dang it. I would really like the idea of vegans all high and mighty eating alive things,
They eat living plants all the time.
Yeah, they do. So, yeah.
All right, what about a carbon atom?
No, not alive.
Man, you're good at this.
Not that good. The sesame seed thing, really, I just didn't know what to say, but all
what
of
about,
it's making the dormant thing helped clarify for me.
What about lichen? Do you know what lichen is? You
Is
don't
it the
like.
stuff on trees that looks
Yeah, kind of on like
whitish
stones.
sometimes?
Yeah, stones and trees and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. That's a good question. It's. I'm gonna guess yes.
You're
It's
right.
alive. I mean,
Yep, it's
yeah.
alive. It's a lichen is a combination of fungus and algae.
I would have guessed it was a fungus in total, like which is alive. You know, mushroom like fungus is alive. So
What about milk?
pasteurized or not?
Not pasteurized. Straight from the teat.
Well, I don't even know. I actually don't know what pasteurized means, but I know it's like, isn't it illegal not to, or
So
to sell?
only when it's if your cows are not raised in a pasture, then it's not pasteurized. If you raise it in your house because a pet.
Like all our American milk is pasteurized.
Yeah, because we have pastures.
And I think it's like killing something. I think I've heard. I'm pulling some vague notions. So I'm actually going to say milk has alive elements.
That's, I mean, but is milk alive?
I mean, that's a weird. Well, like I can't say that milk is alive. I don't. Well, I guess you can say a fluid. Can a fluid be alive? Like fluid contains things that, like, fluid is. I mean, milk is mostly water, and water's not alive. So no, milk's not alive.
Yeah, milk is not alive.
Okay.
I mean, you
I
brought
think
up
the pasteurization process. Like, yeah. So is blood alive? Like the answer was. What was the answer?
Well, that wasn't a question I asked, but it's a good question. It's a good one that would make sense on this attempt to catch you up. I would say that blood is alive. But again, it's a composition of different cells, which are themselves alive.
Yeah, so it would be nitpicky to say it's not alive. Is your point?
Yeah,
Is like saying no, it's technically like this.
it's mostly water. It's mostly water,
Yeah.
which is not alive. So no, yeah, it would be kind of like saying, "Are you alive?" No, you're like 77% water or whatever it is.
Yeah. There's lots of living things in me, but so much water.
As an organism, yeah, you are a living thing. Blood isn't an organism, but
So milk is not alive, and you're saying. So do you know what pasteurized milk and unpasteurized? Because I thought unpasteurized was some sort of, or pasteurized meant some sort of killing process.
it is something like that. I don't remember. I used to know at one time exactly what happened.
I got you. Milk might be alive, man.
No, it's not alive. Milk's definitely not alive. Even like straight from the human teat, milk's not alive. It's like saliva. It's not alive.
Okay. Fair enough.
It's just a bodily secretion, not alive.
Just a milky, yeah.
What about a fossil?
That seems pretty safe to say it's not alive.
Okay.
But yeah.
What about fire?
Ah, man, I think any poetry around the world. I just read Fahrenheit 451 and the poetry of fire and the mystery. Like there's a line in there about science gives us all this gobbledygook about what it is, but man, it's a mystery. It's beautiful, and I think it might even say it's alive with like an energy.
Well,
but
Fahrenheit
I'm
451
gonna say,
says it.
I'm gonna it's poetically alive, but it's not alive.
You're right. Yeah, fire's not alive. What about DNA?
That's a good one. If I just go gut quickly, I'm saying no, it's not alive. But my gut's been okay on this. But like DNA, like that's who we like. People try to attribute like whether you're a serial killer or whether you're gay or whether you'll be clean or not. Like the color of your. Now then, the more realistic is like the color of your eyes and the potential like dispositions could be traced back. So these are like the sequence that has a lot of our traits. But I don't. So that sounds like it's dormant potential, which goes back to the seed thing. So I'm gonna say it's alive.
No.
Dang it!
Not alive.
My gut was serving me well. What is DNA? I mean, I know it's deoxyribonucleic acid.
Wow.
How about that?
Yeah,
Seriously, I knew that. I don't know.
It's just a
It's a helix thing.
It's a helical molecule, molecular structure. Yeah, a group of nucleotides. Yeah, but it's not alive.
If you were a betting man and been asked, does Daniel know what DNA stands for? Where would you have stood on that?
I probably would have bet against you knowing that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people do know that one. That one's kind of drilled into your head as a kid.
In the same way that like x equals negative b plus or minus the square root
Yeah.
of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Like I don't know. That's just for some reason the deoxyribonucleic acid is the same thing.
Right. Yeah, but I would have bet at this point I would have bet that you had forgotten that one. So I would have lost.
Yeah.
5 cents on that bet. All right. What about the internet?
But, no, not alive.
Okay.
But it's interesting to go into sort of electrical impulses and stuff. That's an interesting idea.
Well,
'cause our brain is electrical firings, technically, right?
Right. Well, I mean, it depends on your definitions of alive. By some definitions, I mean, I could imagine someone considering the internet to be alive in some form. But again, you have to, it depends on your definition, whether you're on a more philosophical level or whether you've got some biological basis.
Yeah, I'm realizing like we could say fire is alive in an artsy way. You can say the internet's alive in a not just poetic way, but a meaningful way. It's a living. But even the way you would say like the Constitution, some will try to argue that it's
a living document,
breathing, like their personification, like it's useful personification for an argument. That's
sure. Yeah, you're right.
Like, or to even they're making an argument on how to frame and understand like the internet. But to say it's living and try and very technically defend it just sounds like you're not gonna win. You kind of end up losing that.
I agree. All right, what about an egg?
Well, that has the seed feeling to it. So I'm going to stick with that and say it's alive.
So it depends. Just like with the seed, yeah. It depends. But you're right.
But I've heard that the eggs we eat from the grocery store, like those weren't going to be, like, who was it? I don't know. Like they're not actually going to be chickens. They were not going to be. So consuming them is not killing chickens.
Well, so an egg that you buy from the store is alive. It's unfertilized, so it can never grow into a chicken. But it's a single-celled ovum, and that is a cell. That is a living cell. To a point, after about 3 weeks or so after.
In the same way, like sperm. A sperm is alive, and an egg is alive, like a woman's egg. Like,
yes. Okay. They serve.
So that's what you mean by
the same reproductive purpose for the most part. Yeah, so it's alive to a point. Apparently, a hen's egg that you get in the store is alive, quote unquote, alive for about 3 weeks after, it comes from the hen. And after that, it's just biological matter. But I actually did look this one up because I was interested in it. Like, even though it's alive, like I actually read about how chickens reproduce because I was like, well, how does this work? The egg has a hard shell in it, so if it's alive, can it be fertilized after the egg is laid? And like, that's not how it works in nature, but technically you could artificially inseminate an already laid egg, but it would be extremely complex and pointless to do that.
Has it happened before?
I don't know. I don't recall reading about that.
So it all happens internally.
Yeah, it all happens internally. It happens before the hard shell of the egg is formed inside the hen. So it's fertilized before that point. And then, so by the time the egg is laid, whether you're going to get a chicken from it or not.
How do you know? Wait.
Well, I mean, I just mean like whether it's fertilized or not, whether the chicken
has happened. Yes,
yeah.
We as observers, all the eggs look the same, but some are fertilized, some aren't. We don't know.
Yeah, right.
We incubate them. We put them in a little incubator, and what?
Well, I mean, if you're a chicken farmer and you don't have your roosters, around, and your hens are laying eggs, they're not fertilized. So you're not going to get chicks from those eggs.
Oh yeah, because they still got to mate.
Yep, you got to do the old birds and the bees,
the old cockaroo.
Chickens and the bees.
Cock-a-diddle-doo. Diddle-diddle. and the fiddle over the moon. I don't know. Milk.
What about
saying things? My brain is turning to mush talking about science.
Hard.
I've
Science is hard.
I've said almost all my science terms.
What about coral?
Ooh, yeah. I think it's alive. My gut. So I'm not going to back down from this because I've heard about coral reefs dying. I've heard it's this living, like there's some fact about the biggest living organism in the world is some coral reef. So I'm pretty confident in saying living.
So it's another. It depends. It's kind of like
I wanted a confident yes from you.
Kind
I
of
don't
like
feel like
bones.
I'm learning because all these it depends makes me everything you say afterward. I listen. Don't get me wrong, but it like doesn't retain in the same way because it's just like can't be sure. So I can't say well okay I was
Well,
right.
you can be sure. It's just like bones in that the coral is alive for some period of time, and then when it dies, it calcifies, and that's what the reef is. It's just leftover material like bones.
Yeah.
So you're right that coral is alive at some point, and then it dies, and it becomes the hard reef material that no longer has any cellular activity in it. I don't know that what you heard about coral reef being the largest organism. I don't think that's true. But yeah, coral is alive at least at some point. All right, what about soil?
I mean. There are life-giving, I'm just thinking you plant seeds in it and then it it helps cultivate life. Doesn't seem alive to me. Like worms exist in it, oxygen and stuff, manure, fertilizer. I don't know. No, not alive.
Yeah, you're right. It's not alive. What about wood?
Trees are alive, so we'll go with it depends. If it's like this desk right here is not alive, but you could count the rings. Well, this is probably fake wood, and see how many years the trees lived, and trees are wood. They're not. It's not like they become wood once they fall. That's a funny idea. It's like, what is that? I tripped over a piece of
tree.
Or a tree. I guess you'd say tree branch. So, but like. It just is wood. So, yeah, wood's alive until it's not,
Yeah. Yep, you're right. Exactly right. All right, what about an apple on a tree?
I mean, like flowers are alive, and fruit is a form of like flowers. Fruit. No, but I mean, it's just like you have a banana tree, and it's instead of sprouting flowers, it sprouts bananas.
That's not how that works.
Yeah, I think it is. It's just like some are pretty and smell nice, and some are tasty and smell nice. Like that's the only major difference.
Those are the two kinds of trees.
Yeah, they're all flowers. We should just call them flower trees. It doesn't even make sense. Well, apple. What? It was growing. It's alive. It's alive. Fruit's not alive, is it? Gosh, plants are alive. Fruit. They come from plants. Is it alive? Yeah, I'm gonna say it's alive.
Yeah, it's alive. An apple.
Why am I
on a tree is
overthinking?
alive.
You've really got me into I'm so in my head.
All right, what about an apple after it falls from the tree?
I guess it's no longer. What? If I'm eating, well, it just goes to like a salad too. Plants are alive. So when you're eating a plant, are you eating alive things? The answer would be like, no, I don't think so. So I'm gonna say no, not alive.
It is alive. Well, it's an apple contains seeds, and the seeds are alive. We've already established that seeds are alive.
Yeah.
You could argue that the fruit part that surrounds the seeds is
the thing you're eating.
It's just inert material, and only the seed part is alive. But I would say that apples are alive.
But see, that doesn't sound nitpicky to me. That sounds like a good distinguishing. You're saying, I mean, okay, I'll give you seeds are alive, but just say like to say those is because of those little seeds at the core. Like that feels like but like if I
But it's
said
the same
hand me
thing,
an
right?
apple,
Like
no,
you're
it's not. That's my point. Is it's not like if you said hand me that apple over there, and I were to cut into it and dig out the seeds and hand them over and say here you go, but you didn't hand me the apple. You just destroyed it, and you'd be like, what do you mean? So like
yeah.
the apple is not its seeds.
Well, you're right. The apple, it has all of its parts that it contains. Just like you're more than just the water that you contain. To me, it's the same. We're saying the same thing, right?
I Well, I will concede that
So would you say an
blood is
apple?
alive,
But you're saying an apple is not alive.
if you're telling me that you're saying it's alive because it has seeds, yeah, if it's the seeds that are alive and not anything else, then yeah, I don't know. I'm having trouble with that one. It's calling an apple alive. And I don't think it's semantics. I mean, whereas I will say blood is alive because of all the stuff in it, because it's primarily that stuff. That's what makes it blood. It's not like we call blood, water with white blood cells in it, red
Yeah, fair.
blood cells.
I mean, fair enough. Like that's what I'm saying is you could make the argument very easily that the fruit part, which is just nutritional sustenance for the seeds, you could make the argument that that part is dead, is inert, and only the seeds are alive. And I think that would be valid to say. But
Okay.
for the same reason that you say conceptually, you don't dig out the seeds and say, hey, here's the apple. An apple is an apple, and the core component, literally the core component, is the seeds, and that part is alive. So
What about strawberries? Deseeded strawberries. Are strawberries alive and if you deseeded strawberries or not?
interesting question. I mean, technically, I suppose, yeah. If it's not attached to the plant and the seeds are all gone, then there's no living component to the strawberry.
So it's no longer the strawberry. It's
not a strawberry anymore. It's just a. When is the strawberries?
Seedless
the snozberries.
I call bullshit. That's not a thing.
Snozberries.
Yeah. They're not strawberries. You're calling these strawberries. You should start a campaign about all the misinformation. They say they're selling strawberries, but they're not.
They're not.
They're something. They're the remnants of a
dead
the
strawberry
byproduct of
waste.
Yeah. Strawberry waste. It doesn't sell as well when you call it that.
You want some waste? Can I have a waste milkshake, please? One waste milkshake coming up.
Strawberry byproduct. Yeah.
I got 3 more.
Okay.
What about a fetus? A human fetus?
Well, yeah, it's alive.
What about a human corpse?
No, it's not alive.
What about Chat GPT?
In the same way the internet's alive, but it's not.
Okay, that's all I have.
Yeah, the three ending.
I kind of like in the last episode, I didn't save up any grand finale.
Yeah.
I mean, really, by the time you work through a number of examples, it becomes less interesting of a question, and it does become kind of like, oh yeah, that's alive, or oh yeah, that's not alive.
I agree with you.
And it kind of ceases to become kind of a brain teaser once you work through the reasons why something is alive or not.
But I don't know that I don't know that I walked away smarter because of that. I'm still wrestling with all right, there were some things about having potential for life, like a seed. So I tried to apply that logic to a couple others, and I felt like I was wrong.
Well, I wouldn't say if I was going to define it, I wouldn't say something is alive because it has the potential for life. That's circular.
It is dormant. Yeah, it is. You're right. It's dormant life, I suppose. Is that a better word for it, or is that still circular?
For
it's
a seed,
alive because it has dormant life.
Yeah, dormant is an actual term used to describe like seeds and stuff. That their cellular processes are halted. They're in a form of stasis or very, very slow progression, so that they can quote unquote live for a long time.
And the reason that's helpful for me is because we have this sort of simplistic, it seems not alive, it seems dead, but framing it as it's not dead, it's dormant, helps me understand that it's halted this process that would otherwise be pretty clear to observe.
So do you want me to tell you at least one of the definitions of what it is to be alive, the components of what it means
Yes,
for
but
something
can
to be
I
alive.
argue, like, without going down the rabbit hole about fetuses, it's not debated whether it's alive or not, right? That's not even a political point. The political point would be that the
Yeah,
fetus
there's no
is either
question.
valuable or not. There's
Yeah,
just not a debate on that at all. Like,
yeah, there's
yeah,
zero question that a fetus is alive. It is absolutely and unquestionably alive.
right. So the debate would be whether it's valuable and worth keeping, kind of thing.
Yeah, if you were going to have an ethical debate around it, then yes, the question would be, yeah, whether that life has any value or not.
Got it. Okay.
Like you're talking about in the context of like abortion or
Like
something.
abortion, right? That's
Yeah.
where I think that's where our minds went. But yeah, like, or at least mine. And
Yeah, well,
so,
I mean, I find it a fascinating moral topic, one that yeah we're not going to cover in this episode. But in terms of whether a fetus is alive or not, yeah, that's not. There's no one who debates that question except for
yeah,
idiots, except for people who don't understand, or people who have definitions of alive, where they would consider the internet alive or fire alive, or, some non-scientific standard
right.
for
There's not a
what life is.
scientific. There's not a scientist out there that would say it. There's not even one scientist that's like a legitimate.
Not who
Right.
wouldn't get instantly discredited by making that statement.
Yeah.
Because by any consistent set of definitions, yeah, fetus would certainly be alive.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I want a definition of life.
so I found the way that NASA describes life, and they give 7 components, 7 ways to
Ooh.
tell whether a thing is alive. So the first, in brief, is cells. Does it have cells? Is it a cellular organism? Having
Okay.
cells is a common component of all life on Earth. The second is reproduction. So all life reproduces itself. There are different methods by which that can happen, sexually or asexually or budding or
This is where
whatever.
viruses don't live up to their end. Is that right? That they're
Uh,
not reproducing. Or I guess they
they
spread.
they do
But they
reproduce,
don't.
but in a strange molecular cascade sort of way once they invade a cell. So um, I wouldn't be able to argue on these grounds why viruses are not alive using this definition. I'm sure you
Okay.
could read a ton about the nitty gritty details, but I did not prepare to do that. The other third one is growth. So all life grows and
I
develops
got that
to reach
one.
maturity. You did guess
And
that one.
reproduction in some way. I
Yeah.
think I touched on that.
This one you got energy use. That's the fourth one. All life takes in energy to carry out its functions.
Yeah.
Then one that I wouldn't have included in my definition is homeostasis. So the ability to maintain a steady internal environment regardless of the external environment. I don't know that I would
Like what?
include
Like
that
keeping
one.
your body temperature regulated is,
Yeah,
or keeping.
for humans.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not
Wait,
sure
that seems complicated. I guess I just.
Well, yeah. See,
Do you
I
mean?
don't.
Does it homeostasis sounds like a vague term in that like is it because like a plant is is a plant even when it's raining or like is that homeostasis like in a vague way like yeah it's raining but so it didn't just sort of melt into nothingness that it has some parameters and it sort of maintains
Yeah,
that.
probably. So the way this just gives a little blurb about it. It says all living things exhibit homeostasis, which is the ability to maintain a steady internal environment regardless of their external environment. For example, most humans maintain a body temperature of 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, regardless of whether they're in the snow or the desert. Homeostasis is achieved because of strict biochemical regulations in cells and organs. Now, obviously, not all living things are exothermic, meaning like we are, they give off energy. Like classically, reptiles aren't warm-blooded,
Right.
but they do have internal homeostasis. So, again, I don't know that I would have initially put this in my definition of what it means to
I
be
just want
alive.
one more example because that's the one my brain went to, but I need another one from a reptile or from a like how are they maintaining? They're not talking about body temperature.
They're
With
not.
that. I want
It's not
another
necessarily
metric.
temperature. Yeah.
So I want to know
It's
how a plant maintains homeostasis.
well,
Like sometimes
homeostasis is sameness, internal consistency, and so yeah. I mean, I think actually your stab at it, meaning that yeah, it maintains some internal consistency and form, and doesn't just kind of melt away or morph totally to match its environment.
So even when the wind blows, it like doesn't completely just change.
I would like to know the counter example that they were thinking
something
about
that's close to being alive, but right. No,
it has all the others, but not this one, and that's why. Oh yeah, we need to add homeostasis to our example. Now another thing I'll say is because this is NASA's definition, they may be like casting forward and thinking about, oh, if we find this crazy thing on another planet or an asteroid or something, we want to give ourselves an out to say, oh yeah, this is not life because it's not homeostasis or something. They may be thinking forward to, like, we need to really flesh out this definition so that we can.
I think they'd want to call it life, so they could put it in a like headlines that would be life on Mars kind of thing.
Who knows? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe they might also
more definitions.
All right, the sixth one is environmental response. I don't know that I would have included this one either. All living things respond to the environment by sensing external stimuli and changing their biochemistry and or behavior.
So like growing toward the sunlight kind of thing.
Yeah. Like, I don't know that this is necessary in a definition of a living thing, but they say it is. They say it's a component. And then the last one is adaptation. All living things adapt to external pressures and evolve because of them. So, similar to responding to a stimulus.
Adaptation.
That's what they say.
I'm just thinking that through. It just sounds complex, but I guess it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, essentially, this is saying things evolve. So it's not within a particular individual living thing's lifetime. It's over time, between generations of things.
This definition fits with like bioevolution kind of thing.
Yeah. So those are the components that NASA uses to define living things.
I wonder if I'd find science more interesting if I went back to like a high school 9th grade science class and go, oh, you know what? Like, this totally makes sense. If I'd appreciate it more, whereas previously it was such a drag and a task that I had to do, and I had to memorize some things. But now I'd be more curious about, now that I have kind of a more poetic mind, I'd want to like use it'd all be inspirational to me, and seeing the interconnectedness of living things and biology and just how stuff works. Like, it's not that I'm innately against that stuff, I find that reasonably curious. So I'm disappointed in my high school self, and
yeah, I didn't find biology that interesting in high school. I liked chemistry more.
I just my relationships with subjects were completely dependent on teachers, and I did not have great teachers. That's really mean to say. I just don't or part of that was me. I wasn't ready to have relationships with them. So I should say, instead of I didn't have great teachers, I didn't have great relationships with teachers.
You weren't a great student.
Yeah, I mean, I was an A. Isn't this weird? I wasn't a great student, but I was an A student.
You were only an A student because grading sucks.
Yes, I was a straight A student, and I was playing the game. Like, I gamed the system totally.
Yeah.
It should not, under a real evaluation, I would not have been an A student.
Don't you think that pretty much every student games the system? Like, our educational system is, at this point, pretty much designed to teach people to... Yeah, well, they teach people to game the system. That's how you succeed. Yeah, some people can't, and whether they would be good at actual learning or not is kind of unknown, but they're not good at gaming the system.
But probably not. If you can't do this game, what makes you think you could do another one?
I mean, that's fair. I think that's
so
fair.
I was like potential, and I did it.
But that's the sad thing, right, is that like we want to cultivate the ability to think critically, to learn, and to be inspired by all the different things we can observe and all the knowledge we could, gain, and all that sort of scientific investigation and all of that. But we don't, that's not what we teach. We teach how do you get a number, a particular number,
and we general, just teach social and we do bad conditioning. Like a lot of it was just like, hey, be
That's fine.
Do what I say, and here are my individual rules about how that works, how each class works. You'd have to relearn. I mean, you learn each teacher. If you're talking about gaming the system, that's what I did. Is I would learn what their preferences were, what they meant if they said there might be a quiz versus there will be a quiz versus hint hint. You might want to know this. I mean, these are like obvious examples, but it was all just ooh, this teacher clearly has a passion for this, so I bet on the free response, if I write about this, it's going to be more likely to be received well, like that kind of thing. Instead of like, just being curious about the subject matter, it was just like, how long does this have to be? All of those questions, right? Is this actually graded? Do I have to do this? Yeah. When is it due?
All of those things, like all of the social components that you learned and all of the disciplinary tactics, turning things in on time, working in a group, getting up and going to classes on time, and so on. All that is important, but I would argue that's not the purpose of education. The purpose is the content, right? That's what we want people to learn is the stuff. Instead, we're failing. It's an interesting
position because, like, I think that's a romantic notion that that's what we're doing, and that's what we tell people is like you're taking these subjects to learn about these subjects, the stuff in these subjects. But I mean, I think we have to pause and say like, wait, what if it is just to form good citizens and that are reasonably obedient and that kind of thing like that? If that's the big picture sort of government thought process, it's like let's churn them out so that they're literate enough to follow directions and contribute to our society. And
if that's true, then we're being lied to, though, right? Like that's not the purpose. That's not the purpose.
I think the overlap can be similar. Like follow rules, but in order to follow complex rules that'll contribute to this like working economic system, then you have to know some stuff. So they kind of can work in conjunction. They're not always at odds. It's not like one or the other. So. I don't know though. Oh yeah, and we would be lying, and it's nefarious and weird, and it's social engineering and all that.
Right.
Too, so.
Yeah, that's the part I don't like. Like, things have a purpose, and the purpose of going to school is to learn stuff. Like, otherwise, why have classes? Why have a math class and
this is a really good question. Why do we have it? It's not because the government loves you.
No.
Right? Like, they're not interested in you. Like, they're not. So why do we have it? Is it legit? Why do we have this? Like, seriously, why do we have it? Well, we need to socially engineer you so that you're not committing crime and you're not bored and you'll actually contribute to our economy. Like, and in so doing, you happen to get a good or the idea would be to know some really good stuff because that's going to help us. You learning will help us.
I mean, that's a very instrumental way to frame it, and I'm sure there are people who have thought in ways like that. But I think that like the real origination, it was this kind of faux. I won't even call it faux, but it was compassion, right? It was we want to help. Everyone deserves an education. Some people, know some things and tend to do better, and we've observed that. And so if we make everyone know things, then everyone will do better, right? That's the kind of notion. So we should educate everyone, therefore, and we can't allow people to fail. Like, I
like that.
We're the holders of knowledge, and we know that when you learn things and gain knowledge, you do better. So we're going to enforce everyone to learn things and gain knowledge instead of like the great irony is that if you didn't require education, then people would learn very quickly that they need education in order to succeed, right? They would learn a lesson.
Become valuable.
It would become valuable, no question, because you would fail at everything without learning some stuff. So that's the part. Like, I think that by forcing education on people, we take the agency out of it. We rob everyone of that. Yeah, all of that.
The thrill.
Right, all the stuff that you complained about, like because we forced education on you, you learned how to play the game. You learned how to succeed within that forced system. But
I put my energy into this gaming.
You totally did not put your energy into actually learning the stuff most of the time. Right. Maybe a few times you were inspired.
That's partially because I was just like a boy, like staring at girls' butts and stuff. You know what I mean? And wanting to be social and wanting to be cool. Like, those were my values. Is like I wish I could get girls.
Yeah, but
really
imagine
fit in and play basketball and like. And
but imagine
also I got to do this grade stuff.
Imagine if you didn't have that system imposed on you, though. Then like. Surely you're not telling me that you've never felt academic interest in a
Oh
thing.
no, I was definitely like a little philosopher kid too.
Right.
Would think
So
big
like,
questions. I really was.
if you didn't have this thing imposed on you, then you might have been energized to follow those paths. And if you were energized to follow those paths, then maybe some of your friends would, or maybe girls would have been impressed by your following those paths. And if we had a different society that put the focus in a different area, then
I do like that idea. Or I even get it's tragic. What you're suggesting is tragic.
well, yeah, I
Right?
think
Like
yeah, we've totally
let us
screwed it
get
up.
bored. And
Yes.
I never got bored because I was having to juggle and like keeping my parents pleased with my grades and the whole grade system. So that's what I mean. But gaming, I'll call
Yes,
all that
yeah.
gaming. And then my passions, which was basketball and girls. But I had no idea how to have energy toward girls. So it was like more like, but still I'll put it into just call it social energy and trying to network and have friends and like be and then also like there was this little inkling of starting to watch good movies and feeling a little bit intellectual about that, like, so, and just and the true friendships that weren't work, just talking about big picture ideas and being a little philosophical. So there was, but like all of that was enough. I was full, and so I didn't get bored and have an existential. What do I want to do, and where do I want to throw my passions at? And to some degree, that like I was either delayed or you could argue never found my passion. Like I just all right. Then I went to college, but I was still busy. All the busyness prevents me from like really engaging with a passion so often. We just have such full and busy lives that like you don't engage in a passion. So that's a really twisted thought. But
The busyness is forced on you. That's the problem. Like if you are self motivated, busy, if you fill your life with things that you care about, then that's much more satisfying than otherwise. And also, just
I live
another
a busy life now, and it's sort of confusing. Like, okay, my job takes up so much of my life, and then like having a wife takes up a big part of my life. Like all these things that are important. I love my career. I love my wife. Like, okay, great, but like I'm not sitting around reading books as much or just indulging my like intellectual whims really either, and I'm not bored. So. I don't know. I guess that's a good life, though. I have things that are important that I like doing, and I don't like a lot of it. Like I'm grading papers. So I don't.
Well, you've heard the phrase lifelong learner, and that's what people aspire to, and that's what teachers in a lot of their happy talk say they want to cultivate in their students.
Yeah.
But we fundamentally ruin that aspiration by putting an endpoint on school. When you like people think I'm done with high school now. I'm done with college. Like, whew, I made it. Like it's a task, an obstacle to be overcome, and like it's really hard. I would say, and see if you agree, that it's a very rare student who gets done with all that and just has a passion for learning and wants to continue learning stuff.
Yeah, it's usually like I drag myself across the finish line kind
Right.
of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, UVA, I know, not UGA, but UVA. I remember I dated a girl that went there, and they would not call them freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. It was first, second, third, and fourth year, which I guess sounds like almost Harry Potter-ish now. But like their philosophical belief was like, because education doesn't end. But it's cutesy though. Like it's philosophically aligned with what we're talking about, but it's not putting into practice. It's still just getting your undergrad, and it still ends.
So that's why, like, I think that, I don't know. I don't want to get into it, I guess.
What if they stop that? 5th year, 6th year, 7th year? Like, and I'm in my 18th year.
I don't think it should be. I just don't think it should be structured like that. I don't think you should have school that you go to. Like, it should have an instrumental purpose. Like, you should say, I want to be a farmer. I'm going to farmer school, and you learn the specific skills you need to do your job. And if we want some broader educational system, then it should be voluntary and self-motivated. Like I don't think we should foist this artificial program onto people, because you rob people of that desire to learn.
Yeah. I think we'd have to like learn as a society how to allow for some boredom and misguided
and failure.
People
we would
failure.
have to. Well, that's the thing, right? Is that the bargain we've struck is that we are not gonna allow people to fail. We're gonna spend billions and billions of dollars to make sure everyone has this baseline level of education, even if they totally disregard it, suck at it, fail all of our tests, we're still gonna pay for it, and everyone is gonna have it. Gosh darn it, no matter what.
Yeah.
And if it robs their souls and they don't want to learn anymore, and they're just cogs in our social machine, then we're gonna do it anyway. And I understand the utility of that viewpoint, and obviously we have been, as a society, somewhat successful. But I have my questions as to whether it's a long-term success or a short-term success.
Well, end with this thought then. I think I like this idea, the utility of boredom or the usefulness of boredom, but we're also operating from like we don't commit, like we'll get bored and we're probably not going to commit crimes. I'm curious if they scale this to like a bored society. Sounds like it could be dangerous, and maybe that's why they're like, oh no, let's not let them be bored. And that seems to be like a really driving factor of like get everyone some baseline stuff, and out of that sucks because people that just aren't jerks or we're not going to just get bored and commit crimes, or at least I don't think I would. But
yeah, obviously you know it's more complex than just
in a bored society though. Well, crime might like skyrocket. Like I don't know. I'm just thinking if we were allowing more boredom and more failure. And,
yeah,
I mean,
in our current society, yeah, it would, because we don't have a moral fabric. We don't have good communities. Everyone's mind's poisoned by.
Yeah, there's not really pressure to be doing good
right.
in that way.
Well, that's the thing. Like, well, I'm not even advocating that someone should change this now. I'm not advocating for change. I think we've chosen our path and we're kind of stuck with it until things either devolve or society slowly changes over time. So I'm not advocating for some massive monumental change necessarily, but if someone was going to embark on this sort of change, then many other changes would have to come along with it in order for crime not to skyrocket, or a lot of people not die or starve or whatever, or the economy not to tank. It would require a lot of other changes too. So I'm not advocating for the change. I'm just thinking, what if?
Yeah. Fair enough.
Okay, I'm done talking now. That's the end.
I did. I gave the worst introduction, and so I figured I'd also give a bad. Okay.
All right, go for it.
All right. So,
where's your ending? Let's hear it.
Legend of Bennett out.
You did it. That was the worst.
Bye.
Dun, 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 dun. And